You likely remember where you were. You're a birthday party, elementary school carpool line, or you're at home. At that moment, America realized that we were under attack. Not just that we were under attack, but that freedom, commerce, and democracy, what we stand for, was also under attack. And that we realized that whether we wanted to or not, we were directly involved in the conflicts that were surrounding us.
This is the same climate that Woodrow Wilson faced when the German U-boats sunk the Lusitania. America in 1917 was traditionally isolationist. They wanted to keep to themselves and not be in the matters of the world. So in his war message to Congress, Woodrow Wilson convinces America that we have a duty to protect human rights both at home and abroad.
In order to convince the American people of this duty, he used 1, taking the moral high ground, 2, the strategic personification of the German government, and 3, the context of a slippery slope to escalate the need for war. So in order to do this, he played off the humanity of the American people by showing he had a higher intention more than himself to justify the war as a means of protecting democracy and ensuring human rights. Throughout many of his speeches, Woodrow Wilson would use the moral high ground on many of his stances. This is actually a logical fallacy because no matter what Woodrow Wilson's intentions actually were, his cause or his reasoning seemed greater than himself for the good of mankind. This really supported his speech because it called to the humanity of each and every American and made them think they were bigger than themselves and this cause was greater than themselves. For example, in his speech of the war message, he used quotes like the war against all nations, the challenges to all mankind, and then the world of free democracy. This really emphasizes the scale and the grandness of the war over pronouns like I and we. He uses all 52 times, mankind and humanity 15 times, world and nation 12 times. This really supported the logical fallacy and brought together the unity of the American people, making them truly believe they were fighting for a greater cause than themselves, which was protecting of the human rights.
And Wilson takes as many opportunities as he can find to remind the audience of humanity. For example, to remind the audience that we're protecting human rights, he selectively uses personification to give America and freedom human attributes, whereas he never does that for the German government. Campbell and Huxman describe personification as something that allows us to connect to an idea that is not physically able to connect to, like freedom or democracy. And Wilson uses personification a lot in his speech. He refers to the idea of mankind as having a heart and a conscience. He refers to a League of Nations as having vitals that can be eaten by intrigue. He the whole speech sums up into an image of America that is proud to bleed for and contribute its might to the cause of defending the freedom that it was birthed from and that it treasures so much. And so you can think of what Wilson never uses personification for the German government. He always refers to it as an object. It's an it. And also he makes a big stance to say that this is the German government we're attacking, not the German people. He makes sure that it is separated in the audience's mind. So you can think of this like he's saying that America and freedom are like a human body and the German government is like a virus attacking it. A virus isn't living. No one cares if we wipe out a whole strain of viruses because it's just an object that's trying to kill us. But if the same logic was used by a mayor in a city that says, like, let's just kill all homeless people. They're draining our resources. I don't like them. Let's just kill them. We would be horrified. We'd lock them up immediately because we have a human connection to that person, to that homeless person. And what Woodrow Wilson did through personification was give a human connection to freedom and democracy. And that's a connection that we want to protect and preserve. And it made Germany an object that we can and should attack.
Wilson also uses the device of slippery slope to implicitly express that these attacks on U.S. ships by the Germans aren't just attacks on U.S. ships, but they also are attack ultimately on democracy and freedom and for mankind around the world. He wants to make the audience believe what he's saying, not just tell them that this is a slippery slope. He doesn't say that the Germans did this and it's going to lead to this and this. He wants to provoke the thought in his audience. And he does it by syntax and diction. In some of his quotes and throughout the whole speech, he says words like warfare and mankind. He doesn't refer, at this point, the only thing that's happened is attacks on U.S. ships, not the world, not tons of other countries, but he refers to it as warfare and mankind to escalate it to a higher level of necessity to take action. He also uses syntax, like with his phrasing of words. For example, he says, "I was a little while unable to believe that such things would in fact be done by any government," referring to the actions of the Germans in his boat, on the U.S. boats. But what he does here is he doesn't just say the Germans did this. What he does is enable the audience to see that if the Germans did this unthinkable act, then what can we expect next? We have to be prepared and we have to take action in order to prepare for those unthinkable things. A great way to think of this is like the nuclear war in Iraq. When we first started getting involved, the U.S. in Iraq, all we simply had was an inclination that they had nuclear power. And so if we didn't take action, then they could use that nuclear power to hurt other people, to take over governments, to spread terror throughout the world. Senator Tom Daschle put it, "Neither the U.S. nor the global community can afford to allow Saddam Hussein to continue on this path." Just like Wilson, he had to take action, and if he didn't take action, then the global community itself is going to be affected.
Wilson's purpose in the speech is to show the American people that he's determined to enter in the war not for America's sake, but for freedom and human rights for all. He wants to show the people of this country that it's not an uncalculated or rash decision that he's making, but rather a necessary and imperative decision that will ultimately be the only choice to protect human rights across the globe. By using a moral high ground fallacy, personification techniques, and a slippery slope device, Wilson was able to appeal to the citizens' humanity and show them that Germany acts as an object void of emotion or care, and America is a living and breathing substance that can be killed by the destruction of its fundamentals. Wilson heightened the stakes of Germany's submarine attacks to beyond the murder of humans. It was the murder of humanity and freedom, ideas on which America was founded. When the Lusitania sunk and the towers fell, America had a choice, to act or not to act, to defend freedom in the world or sit idly by and watch it be destroyed. With Wilson's guidance, we chose to act, and this choice arguably may have saved our great nation entirely.